So, let's talk about a moment that truly shook Hollywood to its core. We're going to break down an event that didn't just leak a few secrets. No, it completely rewrote the rulebook for how the industry protects its most precious asset, the story itself.
All right, let's dive right in. We all remember the headlines and the scandal, right? But what the 2014 Sony Pictures hack really was, at its heart, was a massive digital heist. It's become a textbook case study of what happens when your databases are left wide open.
And it all kicked off in November 2014. Just try to picture it. Deep inside Sony's sprawling network, alarms that nobody on the outside could hear are starting to go off. This is the exact moment the attack really got underway. And the sheer scale of it, it was just unbelievable. We are not talking about a couple of files here and there. The hackers walked away with over 100 terabytes of data. I mean, to put that into perspective, that is an astronomical amount of information. We're talking the equivalent of tens of thousands of movies, all just vacuumed right out of their system.
So, what exactly was in that giant data dump? Well, it was basically everything. It was a complete disaster. We had entire unreleased films splashed all over the internet way before they ever saw a theater. Private, super embarrassing executive emails became front-page news. Confidential scripts for movies that weren't even cast yet. And then you have the really personal stuff, like employee salaries and sensitive financial data. The whole vault was just emptied out for the world to see.
But here's the thing, to really get how something this massive could even happen, you gotta look back. This wasn't just some freak accident or a random attack. It was pretty much the inevitable outcome of a long, long history of vulnerability in how studios were handling their digital crown jewels.
And this timeline here, it really lays out that whole journey perfectly. If you look on the left, we started with physical stuff, actual rooms with paper contracts and big libraries of film tapes. Then came the 90s and 2000s, and we moved to these early kind of clunky digital systems. And right there in the middle, 2014, that was the wake-up call, a brutal one. It forced this huge shift over to the right side of the screen, the super secure encrypted content vaults that are now the absolute standard.
And this right here, this nails the root of the problem. For years, the whole culture in Hollywood was built around speed. It was all about collaboration, getting notes on a script turned around in an hour, sharing an early cut of a film with an editor across town instantly. In that world, security was just seen as friction. It slowed things down. So it was always an afterthought.
So the big question is, how did they actually pull it off? Let's get into the anatomy of this thing and see exactly how those hackers managed to crack the vault wide open.
The key vulnerability has a technical name, and it's called database exposure. But think of it this way. Imagine a bank. The hackers managed to get past the front door, but once they were inside, none of the other doors were locked. Not the door to the manager's office, not the door to the employee files, and certainly not the door to the main vault. That's database exposure. Once you're in, you can go absolutely anywhere.
And that is precisely what the attackers did. They got in, probably with something as simple as a phishing email. And once they were inside, it was a total free-for-all. This was their playbook. They jumped from system to system using weak passwords, they found huge archives of scripts and emails that weren't even encrypted, and they just moved around freely because there were no digital walls, no segmentation between different parts of the company.
This just sums up the earth-shattering realization that followed. It was a fundamental change in thinking for the entire industry. For the very first time, everyone had to accept that a movie script, a piece of creative intellectual property, is data. And it has to be protected with the exact same level of paranoid rigor that a bank uses to protect money.
As you can imagine, the reaction was immediate and decisive. The industry essentially started a race to build a digital Fort Knox for film, creating a whole new set of rules for security from the ground up. And this slide just shows you the before and after so perfectly. On the left, you've got the old way, convenience was king, but on the right, you have the new standard, which is all built around this idea called zero-trust architecture. Basically, it means the system trusts no one by default. It assumes every single person and every device could be a threat, so it constantly verifies everything. It's like having a bouncer at every door inside the building, not just the front one.
And these 5 points really became the new commandments for Hollywood tech. This is the blueprint for that digital fortress. Number 1, encrypt everything. 2, who gets access is based on what they need to see, not what's convenient. 3, you have to be able to track every single digital footprint. 4, You bring in that zero trust model, and 5, maybe the most important lesson of all, your public reputation is now directly tied to how secure your databases are.
And if you're wondering why they took all this so seriously, well, just look at the price tag. And this chart doesn't even begin to cover the cost to their reputation or the box office revenue lost from the leaked films. This is just for the immediate cleanup and recovery. Over $35 million. That is one heck of an expensive lesson to learn.
So, this brings us to the final, most important takeaway. Because this whole story isn't just about a movie studio from years ago, it has a lesson for pretty much everyone today. Because this is it. This is the single most critical lesson to come out of the entire Sony saga. Your creative work, your ideas, your designs, your stories, your intellectual property, it is data. It lives on computers, it travels through networks, and that means it is absolutely vulnerable.
So, as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. And this applies whether you're a giant corporation, a small startup, or even just working on your own personal projects. Take a second and ask yourself, what is your most valuable story, and how well is it actually protected?